Hey guys, it's Tati, and I want to talk to you guys about something most of you just can't let go. The Attitude Era. The Attitude Era can be compared to a girlfriend, the first love that you've ever had, and you love her so much, but you just can't let her go. You keep thinking about her. You keep comparing every other girl you've been with to that first love. Let it go, okay? Let me tell you something. We can't have the Attitude Era back. We can probably have something similar towards that, but we can't have it back. Here's what made the Attitude Era. Those who were involved during that time. Okay, what started it all was the whole WCW thing, obviously being in competition with WWE, and back then known as WWF, and if it wasn't for WCW being able to compete with WWE, there would have never been an Attitude Era. The reason why the Attitude Era started was so that they can compete with WCW, who was at one point doing much better than WWE, have higher ratings and whatnot than the WWE at many times throughout the whole Monday Night War thing. Um, and it's not just, with WCW, but the people who are involved. You cannot just have a company and you just skyrocket up like that into having, like, something like the Attitude Era. It had to be the people that was involved, from every wrestler that was there to the creative team to whoever was working for the WWF at that time. Everyone had played a part into making the Attitude Era what it was. Most of those people who was around during that time are not around anymore. This is why we have what they call the PG era now. And it's not just because it's PG. We can't blame it on entirely on who is in charge now, because there's many reasons why there's a PG era, or at least why WWE is playing it safe, especially with Linda McMahon involved in politics. So with her being involved in politics and her husband having this, you know, wrestling company, they really need to be careful. I mean, if you follow, the news and things about, obviously wrestling news, you know that Linda McMahon is heavily criticized over WWE, and there's not too much to be criticized right now. But when they do criticize her about her involvement with the WWE, they talk about, during the past, like the Attitude Era, because obviously the Attitude Era went there and beyond. They did crazy shit that they would have never done had it not be WCW up their ass. And even actually, I wouldn't even say them being up WCW ass, but it. What it was is that they couldn't compete. Sometimes when you can't compete against someone, you have to think, what I gotta do to at least be just as good, or get a spotlight along with them to compete with them. Because now it went from, WWF being the best to WCW doing way better than WWE. And what made the whole Monday Night War thing, excuse me, is like, along with competing, WCW did some shady shit to compete with WWE, because obviously WWE is started doing well as well, and WCW wanted to make sure they were on top. And WCW, what they did was, instead of pushing younger guys or doing something major with the cruiserweight division or whatever, they were pretty much using everyone that that was in WWF, that had something to do with WWF during that time, that were now in WCW, and just pretty much just using them for everything, as in term of being the top guys. Obviously, you look at the NWO, look at everybody, for the most part of people who were involved, Macho Man, Hulk Hogan, everyone who was involved would pretty much have something to do with WWF. So it's like everyone who didn't really succeed, not that it didn't succeed, but anyone who were there and moved on forward to WCW, they were the ones who was pretty much getting the upper hand in WCW, because Chris Jericho, Stone Cold Steve Austin, other guys like them who were who has been the most popular guys in WWF, they were shit in WCW. And that's because WCW was too focused on just those particular guys, especially NWO. They were so focused on them that they weren't, really thinking, what can we do to make this better? What can we really do to actually compete? Because sometimes it's not just about what's popular or who's popular. You really have to bring that product alive. Eric Bischoff did know things about wrestling, obviously, but I think what he did was let that that word ratings and popularity get to him so much that it collapsed. Now, Attitude Era, I guess you could say, was over by like 2001, probably around that time, and like I said, we can't have that back. You're not gonna have the same stables and factions and the same wrestlers or the same creative team. All those people who was involved was what made the Attitude Era. That's not gonna happen again. I always say that people should embrace what we have right now. I know it's not the best. I know there's a lot to complain about, but you know what? There was a lot to complain about in the Attitude Era. We were much younger, and everything looked cool. But I'm pretty sure there was other people who were complaining about that, especially people who grew up watching wrestling in the 80s and probably be like, oh, well, during the 80s, wrestling was not this, I guess you could say, trashy almost. Because, they didn't have things like that, like how WWF had changed in order to compete with WCW. That's the reason why the Attitude Era was there, because of competition. WWE had to pull out shits from their asses and be like, well, we gotta do something crazy. We gotta do something, whatever. From having, storylines with a dead man and sacrifices to, a whole bunch of crazy shit that they did. And it's like, all the people who was involved is what made the Attitude Era, especially, even though WCW was not technically WWE, they made that era as well. If it wasn't for them, it wouldn't have happened. Now, WWE does not have competition right now, and this is why WWE can feel like, well, we can slack off. But, if ROH or Impact Wrestling or any wrestling promotion just come out of nowhere and just get really popular like WCW did, like how they started off and got really popular. Obviously it takes time, but if that happened, WWE would be like, okay, now we gotta do something, because obviously somebody's competing with them and could possibly do better. That's when WWE's gonna really be like, we gotta do better. But at this point, they're not looking at it that way because they feel like it's just them. Impact Wrestling, people like it, some people don't, but I'm pretty sure it can compete with WWE. They just really got to do better. I don't watch TNA or whatever like that, but I do read things about it. And honestly, if they just, possibly better creative team, they just really need to work at it. I would love if they can really get up there and compete with WWE, because I feel like that's what's going to give WWE the wake-up call. And once that happens, then there will be something similar to an Attitude Era. It won't be like how it was in the 90s, because, this is not the 90s anymore, but I'm pretty sure you see better things, and it would be a lot nicer. Like I said, just give it a rest. You wanted the Attitude Era, it's not going to bring it back. And like I said, there were reasons why the Attitude Era was there in the first place, and there's reasons why it's not around right now. We gotta hope for another era and something where it's I'm not saying that it has to be the way it was back then, but something where we don't have to complain as much, where it's an audience for both of us, because it seemed like WWE is catering so much to children these days. And people like you and I, we still watch wrestling, and at our age, and they're not catering to us so much, if you really think about it. So like I said, if WWE had competition, they do much better, but at this point they're not. So wanting the Attitude Era back is not gonna make it happen. And just because People Power Era is out the window now, which I'm really sad about, because I loved People Power. I love Johnny Ace. He's pretty cool. But anyway, even though that's over, it doesn't mean that the Attitude Era is coming back. It's not coming back. Anyway, like I said, those are the reasons why the Attitude Era was around, and for other reasons as well, but I'm trying to keep this video short. If you disagree or agree, whatever, you could put it on the comment section below and we can have a little discussion about that. And thanks for watching, and let's hope for the best to happen in WWE, not just WWE but the wrestling world as well, because obviously people don't even consider pro wrestling as a sport anymore. What a shame. Anyway guys, have a good day, have a good night, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.